Irons, and we are the host of Everyday People.
Maurice, we had a phenomenal show last week. For those of you that may have missed the show, it was Let's Talk About Sex. Can you tell me just what was one of your takeaways from the powerful folks we had on the show?
You know, my biggest takeaway was me and the missus, we need to have more sex. It's healthy. I was surprised to see
more brain cells, right?
It helps your brain cells. It makes your skin plush and plump. I think they use the word supple. So, I want some supple skin. Okay.
So good. So I think my biggest takeaway, one, I just loved Sean's transparency, how she comes with just such a high awareness level of what she was feeling during their relationship, right? And then one thing that really stood out to me, I loved when you brought out from David that the discipline that he had put in place in his sex life transferred over into his business life, all the different disciplines of eating, even you guys talked about.
Absolutely. Just the idea that, self-control and being able to reach a goal. I mean, it's more than just not having sex until you're married. It was so much more around it, from the health benefits, from the character building, the integrity. It was just a great show.
Absolutely. So you can check that out at Everyday People Talk Show. We have a very interesting show for you today.
Absolutely. And today we're going to be talking about more money, more problems. And I can't wait to hear what we've got from our guest today.
Absolutely. Guys, we're going to cover politicians and we're going to cover entertainment today. So we have two phenomenal individuals that are joining us from the entertainment industry. Please help me welcome Danielle Gulley and Derrick Wilson. Hey, you look gorgeous.
Thank you.
Good to see you, as always.
Hello.
What's going on there? So, as you know, we've already talked a little bit. The show is called More Money, More Problems.
Yes, sir.
But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourselves for those that don't know you.
Well, my name is Danielle Gulley. I'm the Director of Music and Fine Arts at Now Word Covenant Church, which hosts this amazing show, as well as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And I am Derrick Wilson. I am the founder and CEO of Power Factor Entertainment, established in 2012, and something to feed the cultures, entertainment-based. Anything you can think of in reference to music, creating a solid culture, and a solid foundation when it comes to entertainment in the city of San Antonio. That's what we do.
So Derrick, we had a few minutes to talk before we got started here. Give us a little snippet of where that power factor comes from.
Oh, okay. Good stuff. Well, by trade, I am an engineer. I've worked for, we'll keep the company nameless. I've worked for them for 23 years, and I'm an engineer by trade. The term power factor actually is a power plant term that I was in the power plant industry for a long time. I'm no longer in the power plant industry, but it's a turbine, and it's the power factor behind the turbine, and that's what I wanted to name the company, because I wanted to be the power factor that could ultimately change the culture. So that's where it comes from. It comes from my engineering background, as well as I wanted to be able to flip the concept of what it actually was, but to put it in a good context. So
nice.
that's where it
I
comes
love that, as we're talking about influence and money today, right? Love that power factor. And then Miss Danielle, I know you have a phenomenal thing that you do here with Now Word. Share with us just a little bit. We got to experience some of it in Easter.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful, wonderful time. We just launched and renamed our new fine arts department, which is called Focus, which stands for Fulfilling Our Calling Using Scripts. So with everything that we do, we use scripts, whether that's this show or whether that's the Resurrection production. You write it out. So write that vision, make it plain. And we are really tackling going into the community and connecting the community with Christ through the arts. And that's our main focus this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned, obviously, you're in the entertainment industry.
Yes.
You bring talent to the city of San Antonio.
Right.
And Danny, you touched on, what you're doing now.
Right.
But knowing you've got a little background in the entertainment industry.
Right.
Not just, with Now Word, but even in the secular world. So both of you have had a lot of experience with professional artists, people,
Yes.
Who are common household names. Along with the topic of more money, more problems, what have you seen in that industry, in that culture, that would maybe give you cause to pause on money actually bringing people more problems?
I think money just bring out who you are. If you are hard to deal with or arrogant or a philanthropist, whatever you are truly is going to be magnified with money. So some people can handle money and some people can't. So your integrity really begins to speak when you have money, because you're now open to so many opportunities that you don't have when you don't have money. And that's probably the biggest thing that we've seen. And sometimes that perceived power, perceived money will also, it can be a little bit more influential than actually having money in the bank.
Yeah.
Just to touch on something Danielle said in reference to the perceived aspect of money, just like she said, she alluded to, I think it ultimately brings out the true character in the person. Whether they be good or bad, it brings out the true character in the person ultimately. That's what I've learned in the industry. A lot of people that you deal with in the industry that actually have money don't really act like they have money.
They're really nice.
You know, they're pretty decently nice people. But you'll tend to see sometimes when it's a perception of it. What I learned is that they deal with the same things that you and I deal with, ultimately. So, but when the problems come in with money is you not being able to handle money. Financial, I guess, woes come when you don't handle your money right. That aspect of it is in any level of whatever it is. If you don't have money and don't know how to handle money, you ultimately are going to create problems for yourself. So I do believe in the concept of more money, more problems, if you allow those things to become problems. So, at the end of the day, it's all about how you handle whatever position that you're in, regardless if it's money or not. It's about how you handle it, ultimately.
I love that.
Now you mentioned, and it sounds like you're talking more about internally, like if
absolutely.
who you are comes out
Absolutely.
when you have more money.
No
But what
question.
about external problems? Have you seen that effect cause more problems for people who have money, whether they're internally high integrity or not?
So I'll even speak to myself on this. I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No, you're
apologize.
fine, please.
But I'll speak to myself on this one. Growing up, I didn't have money. And I wouldn't even say that I have money now, but I have more money than I had then. and ultimately, when it comes to just having a sense of financial stability, if you don't know how to handle that stability, you create problems for yourself. But a lot of it is learned behavior. Like if you don't have anybody in your circle that can actually teach you about credit, finances, bank accounts, handling checking accounts, and so on and so forth, it's going to create problems. That's the bottom line.
The interesting thing that I've seen, not necessarily from those individuals that have money, but from people that think they have money. Like what type of issues are they running into now? Like there are some, especially being on the secular side of it, which is where I started over 20 years ago. I think it was like 94, 95, when I was out there touring with different artists and the country, from the Gap Band, Cameo, Gladys Knight, John B at the time was really popular, right? So when going out and seeing how people treated people that they thought had money or power is so interesting. If you saw a person, and I'm gonna use a male for an example, if you saw a male just walking down the street or coming into a business and you didn't know his financial status, you wouldn't see women just falling all over him and saying, hey, whatever you want, whatever you need. And I've seen some pretty raunchy things, right, in the industry. But because they have that perceived power or that perceived financial status, people do things that they wouldn't normally do to an everyday people, right? Everyday average person. And I think that's one of the biggest things, is that people put them on a pedestal and people prop them up. And because of that, their whole dynamic begins to change.
I know artists, I really and truly know artists that people think have a lot of money and they don't have a car. True story. That is I know a few of them actually. But you try to stay in a space that's, me anyway, when I'm dealing with these people, I try to stay in a space of like, they're normal people just like we are. They deal with the same things that we deal with, so at the end of the day, man, it's all an illusion, all of it, it really is.
Yeah. Well, let me follow it up with this then. So what are some of we know what good money can do, right?
Absolutely.
To any situation. But what are some of the negative aspects, whether it's because you had money or whether it's because people perceived that you had more money or more influence? What are some of the negative things that have come to your personal life because of that?
I'm not an attention seeker. I don't necessarily like the attention that comes with putting yourself in the forefront of an event or your entire company, you know, and the attention that comes with it a lot of times is negative because people make assumptions about you and they don't really know you. And sometimes it can even get hurtful. People say things, you know, people do things to you, and then on the business side of it, people always think that you have it, like, oh, you got it, you know, like bad way. It's just things you have to fight through. There's a guy told me a long time ago, he said, in this business, you gotta have tough skin. If you don't have tough skin, you may as well bow out right now, he said, because they're gonna eat you alive. And I've learned that to be very, very, very true. People are gonna say things, they're gonna do things to you, that ultimately you have to almost find it in you just to be like, you know what, it's part of the process, you gotta keep it moving. Right. So it's trying at times.
I know some of the things that I've dealt with as a female in this business of entertainment that is very male driven. A lot of times your integrity or your character is attacked often. I've been propositioned more times than I can even think of. And understanding if I would have given in these different areas, maybe I would have made it to another level in my career. And I mean sexual advances. And so for me, being a female in this business and holding on to those things that really mean something to me, my integrity, my character, my name. My father taught me when I was a young girl, your reputation precedes who you are. And so before I ever walk into a place, before I ever go to a city or go to a state or go to an organization or a venue, who I am spoke volumes before I ever arrived. And so that's always been my driving force with maintaining who I am and whose I am. And sometimes whether that's secular or in the gospel arena, you're dealing with both of those things. And then also being a woman in a position of power, sometimes you're perceived to be, can't use the term, but it's a negative term that they use for women of power. And you could be doing the same thing that my male counterpart may be doing as far as handling your business, but you're kind of looked at differently. So those are some of the negative things that definitely that I've seen in having influence and having a name or having visibility in this arena.
You know, I'll say this, and I didn't say it in my last segment, but I actually think it's had more of a negative effect on my personal life than anything else.
Wow.
You know, and I'll say it from this perspective. Number one, it takes up a lot of your time. You know, it takes a lot of your time because you have to put the time in order for it to work the way they're supposed to. Yeah. And then the perception of people feeling like you have all these women, like women throwing themselves at you and so on and so forth, it's draining. Ultimately, for me, it's draining. And not to say that those things don't happen where, you know, I do get advances from time to time, so on and so forth, yeah. But to almost make me feel like I'm not disciplined enough to you know, not take on those advances is sometimes it's hurtful, and it affects it affects my current relationship right now. It affects my current relationship. Wow. And so it's like I have to move a little bit differently. You can't speak to people. I'm a people person in the sense of, you know, I shake people's hand, I hug people. God made me like that. That's just who I am ultimately. But sometimes people perceive that as flirting. I can't ask somebody, hey, are you feeling okay? How's everything going? You know, and the rumor gets around that I'm flirting with them because I was asking them if the night was okay. Like, so that aspect of it really, really gets under my skin, you know, it really does. So, you know, that is bothersome, that part of it.
I bet.
Yeah, it is.
You guys have said so many great things. Danielle, I love that you said that I'm okay being a role model. Mm-hmm. We don't hear that a lot of times. We hear that that's them. If they are following me, I can do whatever I want to, right? So I just love that you shared that, and then for you to share so personal with us, Derrick. I could easily stay here with you guys for another half hour asking you questions, especially I've done my fair share of events. I feel your pain.
Yes,
and isn't it a test of our faith? As we do it, right?
It is.
But we are going to have to wrap up. So it has been such a pleasure, yes, having you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise
No, thank
and
you
being
for
here
having
with
me. I
us.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Our next guest in our conversation around More Money, More Problems is District 6 City Councilman and mayoral candidate, Greg Brockhouse. Welcome, Greg.
Welcome.
How are you? Thank you. Happy to be here.
good to see you.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
So Councilman Brockhouse, when we first had a chance to meet just a few minutes ago, my first question to you is, how should we address you? And when you said to me, call me Greg, that's who I am, that just spoke volumes to me about who you are as a person and your leadership. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where'd you start out and what brought you here?
Sure, and thank you for having me here today. Any chance or opportunity I get to talk about the community, my family, my faith, I jump at it. So like you mentioned at the beginning, what to call me, I always try to remember who I serve and why I'm here. So I'm just a kid that grew up on the southwest side of town, graduated from John Jay High School, and yes, I'm blessed to be elected. I was in the Air Force, I've done things in my life, but I'm still simply Greg, and everybody I run into, I represent a community of 155 to 160,000 residents, and trust me when I say most of my time with them is just Greg talking to Joe or Greg talking to Martha, or whatever the conversation is. I always think it's best for elected officials to remember where they come from and to never think they're any better than anybody else they come into contact with. And unfortunately in politics nowadays, it can get out of whack and things get kind of crazy, but I just try to keep myself grounded and work hard to make sure that the people who put me in this office get the best out of me, and that's I try to do that. Look, I spent my entire life here in San Antonio. Like I said, graduated from John Jay High School, joined the United States Air Force, did almost 10 years there, and then got back and done some mortgage banking work in town and got involved in politics, and have been blessed enough to know that I have a unique path to get to where I'm at sitting here right here today, but I love talking about it. I love putting the testimony out there and making sure people understand who I am and what this city can be, and it's such an exciting opportunity, especially in the middle of a mayoral campaign like this. To get out there and talk about our community and the things we need to do. And he said, more money, more problems. That is politics. And I'm blessed for it. And I'm married. My wife is the former Annalisa Sandoval. She's a lifelong San Antonio resident as well. And we have 5 kids. And we're doing the best we can to be the best we can.
I love the humility of where you're coming from. I thank you because I have a glimpse. My husband ran for office, and so I have a glimpse into the sacrifice that not only you, but that your family also puts in to this process. It can seem, we were talking earlier, it can seem so glamorous, so powerful from the outside. Can you speak into just a little bit of the perceptions that other people can have of you? You talked about being in a room and what it feels like when you walk in that room, right?
Well, I mean, people run for office for different reasons. I mean, you come to this job, and it takes courage. I mean, I don't care who it is. You put your name on a ballot, you've opened yourself up to a level of exposure that is, in today's politics, mind-boggling. You be prepared to answer for things you did, things you didn't do, things people think you did. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is in politics nowadays. There is always an attack occurring, and it really matters in how you take your step back and say, all right, why am I really here? And there's 2 types of politicians in the world, and I tell everybody this all the time. There's the one that gets elected and gets downtown and says, you elected me to make the decisions for you, and that's what I'm going to do. The other one that says, which I think I am, which is the messenger. I talk to people, I understand what they want, and then I go downtown and deliver the message. And sometimes it may not even be my message, right? But if I know the community wants something, I go down there and do it. And it is
good.
Speaking of more money, more problems, you've got some people who hear that term and, oh, absolutely, more money, more problems. And then you've got others who are saying, how could you have problems if you have more money? In your experience being in politics, having this newfound, influence in the community, would you agree with that statement that more money brings more problems? And whether you do or not, follow up, what kind of problems have come with that new influence and power that you have?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% adhere to the fact that more money, more problems, and the scale of it. That's the other thing too. Our people in our community, we may have a family of 4 makes $35,000 a year, and they're living on the south side, and they've got problems, can't pay their bills sometimes, trying to figure out how they're going to get their kids through college, all of it. I mean, you name it, basic life things. Here comes the CPS energy bill, blah, 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 right? All these base life problems. And then you go to the family that's making $500,000 a year, living in Stone Oak, and guess what they're worried about? I got to get my kid through college. How am I going to pay these car payments? So the amplification, because you have more in, doesn't necessarily mean all of a sudden everything's solved. I know that because I've lived in the part where I've been in my world, in my life as a human being, where I had to take care of my family and I had to go get a payday loan to do it. Like if you're a husband and you have your family, you're taking care of your family, you will do whatever's necessary to make sure your family's fed and taken care of. I've been at the bottom rung of it where I had no money and I still had the problems, and then I got more money over a life, and the problems just seemed to amplify. I mean, I was like, what in the world? Like, I thought I'd get the money that would solve the problems. But the truth is, the money can solve a problem. But it doesn't change who you are, right, internally as a human being and the things that matter most. And, for me, where it started changing over time is the closer I got to faith. So a lot of the mistakes and the things, the more money, more problems came, the further I stepped away from my faith. Because it's easy to take that money and do bad with it. It's hard to sit there and tithe your portion into somebody who needs it. I'm not talking about just tithing at a church or giving money at church. I'm talking about seeing somebody who needs a sandwich or seeing somebody who needs an opportunity, somebody who needs a job. I mean, there's things we can do. So I don't know. More money, more problems is absolutely it. It doesn't solve anything in my world. It's politics. It doesn't. In fact, it infects the business because people with the money have the access, right? Because they're going to donate me cash and they can walk in the door and they expect to hear from me. I ain't that kind of politician. Most of the big wigs and big dollar people don't come knocking on my door because I'm not there for them. So in my world, I've learned to take the money out of it as best I can so that I always keep my mind on the issue. And I think I've been highly successful for it. And I wish we could change it, but I don't think we're going to, not in politics. This is what it is from here on out.
We've seen so much here in Texas, especially in the congressional run where we had, or in the Senate run where we had Beto, and we had more money spent on that race than any other race. Do you find that you're at the local level, right? You're serving our city. Do you find at the local level it's the same thing that we're facing in the congressional and the senatorial races, that that money does make a huge difference because it's name recognition, it's commercials on the television, it's getting out there? Do you find that it makes a huge difference on the local level the way it does on the national level?
It does. It helps initially to get your name out there, but here's the thing about people, about voters. A lot of people like to dumb down the voter, right? Only 13% of the city votes. It's embarrassing. But I don't put that on the citizen. I put that on us. You know why people don't vote? They don't vote because they don't trust politicians. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the inequity. They don't trust the families and the people of color left behind. I mean, you can go right down the line why that trust has built up over years. But the money initially helps you get yourself out there. So that's where it really matters. In the first portion, like a first third of a campaign, the cash matters. Like, how do you get your name so that somebody at least knows your name? But after that, it becomes in the middle, and then the last third of a campaign, it becomes, okay, what do you really believe? Like tell me what you think. And if you're able to get those thoughts out there, the message beats the money all the time. If the message is right, the money will follow. It's never the other way around. Message is key in every part of our life, period. What's the message or word you're receiving or giving? That's the most important piece. The dollar will help, but it will not solve. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. And in our earlier conversation, we were talking about not just money, but also the perception of power or influence, which often leads people to believe that you have money. Being in your position now, how has it negatively affected your family or your personal life with the perceptions of people and where you stand in the community?
Politics is a horrible, when it comes to personal attacks and smear campaigns and what people say about you. I can honestly say in San Antonio, politics is the worst it's ever been. And I think really what people, how you survive it is really, for me, it's faith. I mean, I know you keep saying going back to this faith component, but I go home at night and I pray about it. Even when people are attacking me, the only thing that gets me through that moment is I say a rosary. I'm a Catholic, and I sit there and I say a rosary. In my head, I'm thinking, I got to survive this. Please, dear Lord, don't let me say what I'm really thinking right now. Right. But the attack is so personal. I worry for my family more than anything. Like, I asked for it, but my wife didn't. My kids didn't. They read it in the paper. But the people, here's what I tell people, and I'll wrap. But this is what I would want everybody to remember, how we're going to fix ourselves as a community, period. Somewhere along the way, disagreement became discrimination. And we don't solve our ability to effectively disagree with each other, even if it's, vocal, man. Even if you're going at it, you're using words you shouldn't be using in church. But even if you go at it in that manner, as long as you can disagree on it, the minute it becomes where you're hurting somebody or you're attacking them, you've really, and I think we're there. Like, I think as a city in politics, we're there, and my family suffers for it right now. We're in the middle of it right at this very moment. This is the most divisive campaign I think has been ran in the history of San Antonio mayoral politics. Wow. But my wife and I stand there together, and we keep holding. I hold her hand, she holds mine. Hey, look, every sinner has a future, and every saint has a past.
That's good. That's good.
That's awesome.
Now, I know we said we were going to close out, but I would be remiss not to bring up the huge situation that was happening here in San Antonio regarding the airport and the
Chick-fil-A, yes.
issue. I know you all had to, place votes on that. Can you kind of tell us what you think about that situation?
Look, I voted to keep Chick-fil-A. I think it's embarrassing. I think it's a national disgrace. I think if you give a buck to a faith-based organization, or in this case, the Salvation Army and the Friends of Christian Athletes, I mean, the organization donated to their faith-based cause, and they believe in certain things. They believe in traditional marriage. They have their belief system. To be kicked out of city governance or an opportunity to never speak or be a part of the city process, it's dead wrong. It's a violation of our constitutional rights to freedom of religion. I mean, this is as basic as the country gets, and I fought as hard as I could. He was even able to get it back up for another vote, and the council still voted to kick out Chick-fil-A. Look, if we don't respect each other, remember I said earlier, disagreement has become discrimination. Yeah. Chick-fil-A is a fantastic organization. They hire everybody. They serve everybody. They treat everybody with love and respect, period. The fact that they believe in the Lord and they have donated to those causes, we can disagree with their want to do with their money, but we cannot treat them any differently. So you can't solve inequality with more inequality. Right. It's a tough piece, and leaders have to recognize that. It was a horrible mistake. And I think even the nation, I mean, this thing was, I was reading stories about it in Colombia. I mean, it was like all over the news. I'm like, this is a global breakdown, but we'll fix it. And don't forget this, San Antonio is a city built on faith. Like, it's named after St. Anthony, people. Like, I'm not trying to point the obvious out here, but we are a city built on faith. And we violated a core tenet, and I think it struck to people's heart, right? And I think that's why people got activated on it, because they're like, yeah, you know what? The God is much more important than your beliefs downtown in City Hall. So we'll fix that. If we become mayor, we'll fix that. And if not, I'm still going to Chick-fil-A, Right. Ain't nobody stopping me, man. I may take more selfies in front of it than ever before, but no. And that's something we'll learn from. And in those moments when things get out of control, it takes calm heads, cooler heads have to prevail and say, let's make the right decision for our community. If we don't have the facts, let's wait. Don't make bad decisions. That's a good life lesson, period. You ain't got all the facts. You don't have to make the decision. But we did, and a lot of us regretted it. And I think a lot of San Antonians felt it didn't reflect us.
Well, thank you so much for
good.
sharing that.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. Like she said, we would love to have you here a little bit longer, but we know we've got to wrap things up
You're
here.
good.
So thank you so much for joining us here on Everyday People. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andre has been out there with word on the street. He is at My Collision Center, which is an amazing business. Dre, tell us what's going on.
Maurice, Bridget, this is Word on the Street with your man Andre Cooper. Listen, I am out at My Collision Auto Center on the corner of Perrin Vital and Naco Perrin. If your car needs body work, I'm talking about the dents knocked out, a paint job, come on over here and they will take care of you. I'm going to be talking to some people today, and they're going to let you know just what it's like to work here at My Collision Auto Center. So come along with me. I'm standing here at Mike and My Collisions. Mike, how are you today, man?
Good, good.
Good. Listen, let me ask you, first of all, what's your position?
I'm a painter.
A painter?
Yes, I paint cars here.
Really? So how long have you been painting cars?
I've been doing it for 30 years now.
30?
Yes,
How long have
sir.
you been with My Collision?
This July will be 4 years. You know, we focus on customer service, and you know, we really take pride in what we do. And so, you know, if you bring your car here, it'll get really well taken care of. Listen, I'm standing here with Marissa and with AJ of My Collision Auto Center. Marissa, how long have you been working for My Collision?
My collision's been about 6 months.
6 months?
Yes, but I've been in the industry for a little bit over 4 years.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you like working for My Collision?
I love it.
Love it. What about you? AJ, how long?
I've been here ever since I started in my collision centers. I started at My Collision, and I've been here for 3 years.
What?
This is my spot. It's very family orientated. I love my group. I love the team that I work with, and
So
I
they
can't see myself working anywhere else.
We're looking at the truck behind me, and I'm going to be putting in some work today. I don't know if I'm gonna pick up a screwdriver or a hammer or whatever, but I'm gonna be doing something.
Looks like Andre is out there having a blast, learning some new things. Hey, more power to you, Andre. Listen, we want to thank all of our guests for being here with us today. We had a great conversation, and we wish the best for you in all of your endeavors.
Make sure to stay connected with us either on Facebook or on our YouTube channel. We would love to hear from you as well. What are some of your opinions on what we talked about here today?
Absolutely. And remember, we also want to thank our main sponsor, Now Word Covenant Church. And if you're interested in sponsoring Everyday People, or if you would like us to come out to your business and be hosted on Word on the Street, feel free to hit us up at everydaypeople@nowword.org.
And taking us out today are the beautiful, sultry sounds of the lovely Miss Mallory.
I'm going away for a while. I'll be back, don't try and follow me. 'Cause I'll return as soon as possible. See, I'm trying to find my place. It might not be here where I feel safe. We all learn to make mistakes and run from them, with no direction. Or run from them, with no conviction. I'm just one of those folks traveling endlessly. Don't need no road. In fact, they follow me. Oh, and we just go in circles. But now I'm told that this is life. Pain is just a simple compromise. So we can get what we want out of it. But can someone just classify the broken hearts and twisted minds so I can find someone to rely on and run to him, full speed ahead. Oh, you are not useless. We are just misguided folks traveling endlessly. Don't need no road. In fact, they follow me. Misguided folks traveling endlessly. Don't need no roads. In fact, they follow me. They follow me in circles. Whoa. So